So thank you again. Today's webinar is called 3 Ways to Connect to Your Consumers Better. My name is Erin Gilbert. I work for Onboard Informatics, the leader in data-driven consumer engagement. Today we're going to talk about something really exciting, a new approach to connecting with customers that generates real results. In fact, nearly 8 times more unique site traffic. It costs significantly less than traditional marketing, and it delivers 3 times the leads. So we're going to discuss the science and statistics around this methodology so you understand why this kind of engagement yields these results. Then we're going to talk about 3 easy things you can do today to get started down this path. We want you to leave with full knowledge and science and statistics and also real take-home delivery of easy steps on how you can get started, like today. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. We are going to keep this short, 10 minutes. Some housekeeping. If you have any questions, you can just type them in and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. But we are going to go ahead and get. So let's start briefly with this notion of traditional marketing and how you might be reaching out to customers and prospects today. Maybe you run commercials or spot ads in print. Maybe you do outdoor or even email blasts. Perhaps a combination of these things, and all of these things are designed to create awareness and push out a singular controlled message to the masses. But times have changed. These approaches are designed to start a consumer down this kind of linear path, what we call a sales funnel, this guy right here. And those types of marketing efforts create awareness of your brand and start consumers down this path. The problem is that this path was created in 1898, well before the internet, and it no longer is relevant to the overwhelming majority of your customers. In fact, 87% of customers now say their travel to purchase is a less linear and complex path. So, and that makes sense, right? I mean, think about what's available to them. A plethora of information, research options, data at their fingertips, and they don't even have to go anywhere to get this information. It lives in their pocket. The access to information simply changes everything, starting with how we as companies and brands connect and communicate with consumers. So what do consumers care about then? Well, when considering a purchase of any kind, whether it's moving boxes or property insurance, only 13% say it's about exploring options. That's not what they care about. And they don't care about commercials or brand messages. In fact, in 1965, they say 35% of people remembered a commercial from the night before. In 1990, that stat was at 8%, but today it's less than 2%. People don't remember the ads you're putting out. It doesn't resonate with them. It's becoming less and less relevant. So what matters? Well, what matters to consumers is themselves. What they say really influences their purchase decisions is themselves, what they're feeling at the time. It's more about me, they say. And if you leave with one thing today, leave with this thought. Your customers don't care about you. I know that's a little harsh, but they don't. What they care about is themselves. So the linear path is dead. In the age of content, information, accessibility, consumers now want a journey that's catered to their own wants and needs, that feels like a unique experience that's just for them. And it's not a path. It's this thing. They call it a loop. And I just want to credit a joint study done by About.com with Latitude that really explored this theory. So instead of what we know as marketers, you know, the awareness, intent, desire, action, we're now looking at openness, realizing wants and needs, learning, seeking ideas and inspiration, research or vetting. And these don't follow any particular order. Consumers kind of bounce around from one to the other. And at this point, I'd like to kind of take a pause. And we have a lot of people on the line. I want to see if any of you are experiencing this. Are you seeing a lot of bounce rates? Are you seeing people come to your site and leave? Let me just see if anyone... Okay, great. Looks like we have a comment here from Tracy, who works in the moving industry. Let's see. Okay, she says, this makes a lot of sense. We have a site that estimates the cost of moving. We have a lot of people that calculate that cost, but then go elsewhere. Okay, this is a great point. So these people are obviously kind of in the learning part or the research part of their process. It's important that you have that tool And in fact, taking a pause, if you look at each stage of this loop, it's important that your efforts address each one. And just by doing that, running through these things, do I have content that inspires, that helps people realize the path, that helps inform people as they're doing research? Just by thinking that through, you will yield better results than just thinking it like a path. Gosh, it looks like we have some more questions popping up, but I do want to respect our time. We said this is a 10-minute webinar, so I'll cover the rest, and then I promise to get back to those questions. So let's see. Okay. So you want to engage these bouncing people that are really focused on themselves. What can you do as a marketer? So at this point, I would want to address 3 easy ways that we can get started in creating true connections with your consumers, and these will yield results. I'll address the theory and then a simple action you can take to put that theory in action within your own business. Hopefully that makes sense. So the 3 critical areas or starting points that you can consider: 1, identification, 2, personalization, and 3, creating a holistic experience for today's consumer. First, let's talk identification. So we all do segmentation. I'm sure you guys all do that. It's kind of marketing 101. And back in the day, we used to segment by demographics, right? We would say like, okay, I'm segmenting, this is a woman, she's 42 years old, she has a family, 2.5 kids, whatever. And in the age of internet marketing, that kind of segmentation simply doesn't fly. Today, you must not segment by who your customers are, but you must segment by what they care about. So understand who you're talking to. Understand what they value, what keeps them up at night, and why. Why are they on your site, on your blog, on your feed, on whatever you're putting out? What are they looking for? And what can you create, in essence, that reassures them that you understand their journey and can offer help? The most powerful marketing starts with empathy. When you truly know your customer, you can offer guidance, answer questions, and solve problems. You think you might get better results from doing this rather than creating another ad or doing what your customer is doing or your competition is doing? Absolutely. This is powerful. Now, this is easier said than done, and I realize that, we're not mind readers. You may not know today what your customers value or what keeps them up at night. So how can you start to identify those critical things? One example on how to successfully identify what your customers care about is through data. An easy example of this is around their address. And since Tracy weighed in earlier, we'll use a moving company as an example. So if you have a bank of customers, you likely have the address of those customers on file. There is data available, and Onboard actually has this data that will alert you when the customer puts their property on market or when they go into contract. If you're dealing with renters as a moving company, you can simply flag that property a year later and know that that customer is likely coming up for a lease renewal. This is a very easy indication that that customer is going through an important life event and that they probably care a lot about that at that moment. So start identifying your customers based on what they care about. Second, let's talk personalization. These are people that care about themselves, right? So you want to make sure your message is addressing them personally. Personalization in emails is nothing new, but it is effective. In fact, simply by putting the first name in the subject line, you will increase open rates statistically by 40%. But what if you took this a step further? In that same example with Tracy's moving company, you can use data to identify when a person is moving and send them a piece of content directly related to the property they're thinking about all the time. And look at how this piece uses the identification process and the personalization. So it calls out in the subject line the first name. It calls out what Edward is likely thinking about a lot. It addresses Edward front and center in the very top of the piece. And then it talks about interesting and relevant content around that piece of property that feels custom and personal to Edward. This is what we're talking about, identifying that person, what they care about, and then sending them a piece of content that directly relates to that. And this example doesn't have to be a moving company. It can apply if you're trying to sell mortgages or property insurance, storage facilities, anything that coincides with this particular life event. Identify what your customers care about and send them something that relates. It's that easy. But it's not just about that, right? I mean, we're marketers. We're in the business of selling. So you need to kind of close the loop with this as well. So you want to kind of tell the customer what you want them to do. So in that last example, you sent them an email, but then maybe that email drives them to a landing page that has more information. And here's an example of what that might look like. But also notice this piece isn't just marketing. It's not a marketing message. It's personal around that property, and it's interactive. So now the customer feels like they are in control of this process. So remember our loop? Whether that person is in the learning phase or seeking ideas, this type of engaging tool will address their wants and needs at that point. And then when they're ready to purchase, you have a clear, concise call to action bottom right that lets them know you're there for them when they're ready. Now, in order to create something like this or the custom email we displayed earlier, you need data-driven content. And that's something that Onboard specializes in, and I would love to discuss with you further. But even if you never call me or reach out to Onboard, know that this is a better path to revenue. Even if you want to just take a baby step and start by personalizing your email, that's going to be effective. So in summary, it's a loop, not a funnel. Your customers don't care about you, they care about themselves. So in your marketing, stop talking about yourself and start talking about them. Identify their wants and needs and what they value, and then personalize your message to those wants and needs and what they value. And create a complete experience that highlights or at least addresses each point in that loop. And no, it's not going to be a linear line, but that they're going to bounce around and you're going to be there as they do. So we are out of time, and we are actually 2 minutes over. I apologize. So I wanted to leave you with my contact information if you have any questions. And then we do have a bunch of questions here. So I'll just take the first couple. If you can hang on the line, you are welcome to. If you have to go, please feel free to reach out to me. So let me take the first question. Let's see. This is from Tom. Tom says, I own a hardware company. How can I identify when a customer is ready for home improvement? Okay, so this is a great question. Identification and segmentation, of course, key to this kind of personalized messaging. So in Tom's case, the hardware company, you can use data, of course. You can put in systems in place that alert you, like what I was talking about, when a property goes on the market, because you know new movers are more likely to buy your services, or even put an alert when that property is refinanced upon. You can also use content, like you can create blogs and articles and videos, have that on your site, so when that customer is doing kind of research or needs inspiration, you have that content available. Actually, there's a company that does this really well called, I think it's House. I'll send you the link, and then I'll include the link for everybody, but they do a really nice job of inspiring content and then driving back with a call to action within the content. Anyway, so those are some easy ways that you could identify as someone with a hardware company when that customer might be ready for your services. Now, we have a lot of questions, but I'm just going to take one more. This is from Brian, and Brian asks, where can I find the about.com study? Okay, great question, Brian. I will include a link to that study as well. It's a good one, and some other resources in the recap along with the video of this webinar. Unfortunately, that is really all we have time for. We went 14 minutes, but I do appreciate you guys hanging on and all of the attendance. I know we're close to holiday weekend, so we really appreciate you participating. If you wrote a question, I will address it offline. If you have any other questions on better connecting with customers through data-driven solutions, please give me a call or drop me an email. My information is here on the screen. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our webinar. Have a great afternoon and a lovely holiday weekend, and we'll speak soon.